does he sound so distant from the microphone? Well, I'm doing this in my laundry room where I bumped into the dryer where the equipment is, and we went off air right before we were about to start. It is WrestleZone.com. This is your WrestleZone Daily for the 9th of April. I am Kevin Callum. In these uncertain times, okay, I got that out of the way. I have to establish that. I got to get that out of the way. Coming to me from the Steel City, Pittsburgh, PA, from WrestleZone News Desk, the one, the only, Mr. Dominic D'Angelo. We got some beef. We got some salty. You've got hardcore beef with me, and I got hardcore beef with you. Good. And we're having ourselves a debate.
A little showdown. A Donnybrook.
A Donnybrook, if you will. A meeting of the bald minds. All right, two bald heads gonna beef here in a little bit. We're getting into it for you here today, and hopefully you're watching on demand or live somewhere. I don't know if we've connected live exactly just yet.
I'm not seeing nothing.
I'm not seeing any connection at all. But here we go. Someone joining us. Someone's coming in.
Yeah.
Gotta love Be Live. All right, if you're watching live, don't be afraid to share the link with us here. It took a little bit to pop on here. What's going on? Hope you guys are getting the connection well. But we do have a debate today. We do have a big debate. And it is an AEW versus WWE NXT debate. And what a day to have it. What a day to have it. We are fresh off the Wednesday Night War. We just did an episode with Robert DeFelice. That is in the podcast feed, also up on our Facebook. You guys can go watch that on demand as well. Plenty to get into. A lot of debate on that. A lot of people watching that show. A lot of comments about what NXT did, what AEW did last night. The ratings are in, Dominic, and they are some surprising numbers on both sides. These coming from Showbuzz Daily, and of course we have them at WrestleZone.com. How did they turn out, Dominic?
692 apiece, right? Was that it?
692, and the Showbuzz is giving the edge right now to NXT. So this would be the first time that NXT has gotten a proverbial win, if you want to say that, since they're so close. And also, those numbers these are just overnight numbers. So that's another thing to say is these numbers are very initial. Anytime you're within, I would say, 100,000, those numbers it can be a lot closer than you think, or go either way. Now you're within 1,000, and they've tied before. This is not the first time you can say they tied. Right now, Showbuzz is giving the daily Showbuzz Daily, which is where we're getting our ratings reports from every Thursday. They're reporting that NXT has the edge now at 693,000 estimated households watching the show. This would give the edge to NXT for the first time since mid-December. AEW, for the most part, has had the wins, though NXT put on a stretch of wins in December coming out of Survivor Series. They had a lot of different crossover superstars. But what do you think of those ratings coming? I mean, these are very speculative numbers. Another thing, these numbers don't include DVR past 3 days. They don't include how people are watching the show on demand through cable systems. And it's not clear how much Hulu influenced these, as NXT is available on Hulu while AEW currently is not. What do you think? The numbers are very odd, and they're fluctuating a lot more for AEW than they are for NXT.
You know, ever since like the pandemic and the quarantine, all that malarkey has happened, I've just always kind of assumed like, hey, people are going to watch TV. And it's going to be positive for wrestling if they're still going to churn out new content. But so I've been kind of flabbergasted about this whole thing of how, I understand the news is really big right now. Yeah. And that's a huge takeaway from it. But I did think okay, wrestling fans are still going to watch wrestling. But it's just, so it boggled my mind in the first place. Right now, I mean, I think it's, it's a sign. It's a good. I don't think it gives too big of an indication, but it is a positive sign for NXT in regards to what they put out last night. And I was shocked to hear that the main event had mixed reviews. I thought, from what I was reading initially, that it was universally praised. I thought. But
are you talking about Gargano and Ciampa?
Gargano and Ciampa, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but overall, I feel it's pretty positive in regards for NXT, and I think AEW got a little bit of a boost from last week in viewership. Is that right? I think a
little bit, but still their numbers have trended very erratically. since the beginning of the pandemic, and I thought of the major promotions that are on television, that maybe an Impact or an MLW would be affected more severely. We'll talk about MLW. Some good news for them today, and some good things for them in the world of wrestling, and specifically televised weekly wrestling. Impact, I thought, would be hit pretty hard, and that maybe they would go on a rest period since it's kind of hard for their existence has been so questioned and challenged by fans for a while now. But it looks like they're going to march ahead, and they're going to have a no fans at taping in Nashville, and they're going to move ahead here. MLW simply has had a lot of content in the can. They tape months ahead of advance, and as far as we know, you know the situation with them. How far taped out?
Yeah, as far as I know, they went to Tijuana and they did their MLW AAA Lucha Libre Super Series. So they have probably at least, I would say, 5 tapings in the can.
To be clear, Dominic produces content for MLW.com.
Yes,
so he kind of has the insight.
I write their weekly recaps.
In terms of all those other companies, I thought that WWE would be in the safest position because they have the infrastructure. They own a facility. They own a performance center. Now, mind you, regulations could come in and still shut them down, and it's determined whether or not that may or may not happen in Florida. We may find out when we get an episode of SmackDown this week that's being taped, and 3 weeks of Raw, 3 weeks of SmackDown are apparently being taped over the course of the next 2 days. So it's. WWE has that infrastructure. They have the money. They have a huge cash reserve. Business-wise, they don't. I was concerned about how AEW would be affected about this. And it's just simple circumstances. It isn't like, they didn't. How do you prepare for something like this? Everything's so fluid.
Yeah.
So I think eventually this is the first time, and mind you, I've only seen clips of AEW, where I felt like, okay, they're getting hit by this in terms of what talent they can put on screen, how many people they can frequent on screen, and how they can have them there. And this is the first week where I thought it was really smart that they used a big star on commentary. They did it with Cody. Jericho was really influential. It was fun. I think Jericho added so much to squash matches, and they had utilized squash matches. It felt like this is the first time I saw AEW say, like, outside of Dark, because Dark has been relatively jobber matches for a few weeks now. And that isn't a bad thing. If you're just getting content, you just want to see the guys do their thing, and it's a hold program, fine. But I haven't seen them do that on Dynamite. I mean, they did some stuff with Britt Baker that was fun, but like Jericho really helped in terms of adding that stardust, for lack of a better phrase, to some segments that may otherwise just be seen as filler or just something to keep a character on television until they drop the next real big storyline element with him. And that's what they were doing with Brody Lee. But let's get into the debate, because you and I got into this on Twitter last night.
We did.
I did watch I sought out a specific clip, and to be clear, I haven't seen all of AEW, so I know some people may take my take on this is a little bit off. But you haven't seen all of NXT this week, so I'm not holding it against you either. Yeah. But Jon Moxley made a comment, and it just made me roll my eyes at 100 miles an hour, because it felt like, man, this is some cheap heat that they're going to. What did Jon Moxley say to set up the match next week with Jake Hager?
Moxley happened to say that him and Hager aren't about putting smiles on people's faces. I don't know where I've heard that before. Have you?
Come on now. Dom. I just had a corned beef sandwich, and it was salty enough for me, okay? Come on now, Dom, this is ridiculous. Like, this
I don't know. Just help me out here, Kevin. Help me out.
See, now you're laying it in because you know you're getting under my skin. He knows what he's doing now. And everyone thinks that, these guys don't get along. No, we do. I appreciate when someone doesn't agree with me, but they have a strong opinion. So this is Jon Moxley, a former WWE champion, in a match with a former WWE World Champion, 2 guys who became household names in WWE, not in AEW. And they're having household names first. Coming over to AEW is helpful to AEW. And AEW I feel, is going to the well way too many times in a short period of time to burn out the special factor of, we're going to take a shot at WWE, and maybe you know it, and I'm going to wink at you, and my tongue is going to be in my cheek, but the tongue is poking through the cheek, and the wink looks more like your eye is flickering on and off. And for me, and I get where AEW has this thing where the guys are creatively influencing their own stuff. They're coming up with their own promos, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I had an interview with Jon Moxley where I saw face to face, this guy feels so clear and so open about what he's doing and motivated about where he is in AEW. And I saw him win the title in Chicago. He's been one of the most compelling characters for AEW, without a shadow of a doubt. I think people have taken him for granted since he's been to AEW the past few months, and even being the champion. But mind you, there's a bunch of other reasons for why that's happening. To me, this came off as the cheapest heat you could find. This is, we've gone to the store. What can we get a pop with? All the disinfectant wipes are off. What pop are we going to get from the store and bring home? All right, we're going to have to go with this. We're going to have to go to the well of reminding you that we're not WWE again. And to me, it just came off as pandering in a way that if they keep doing it, for me, maybe I'm on the curve. I watch everything. I follow everything, you know? But to me, and everyone gives me the pro WWE thing. It's not. I'm pro wrestling. I think doing this stuff it's just too much. And they've done it too many times over and over again. You're doing it with Brody Lee, where the idea is that he's this dark version of Vince McMahon, right? And they're always nodding at that. The thing is, it's like when you watch a show and someone does the same finisher. It's like it came off that way. It's already played out to me.
Well, I understand that. And I do get that aspect of, hey, you don't want to go to the well too many times with certain things like that. But, Kev, when I heard Moxley say that last night, I honestly thought that just came straight from Moxley, not anything else. Sure. I think it's a lot of pent-up stuff that he's probably felt for quite a while, and like going on those catchphrases and that talk that WWE has, those phrases and whatever that Vince McMahon leans on and stuff like that. I love it. It warms my heart, actually. I feel as a wrestling fan, when it comes to that stuff, if you're on a level of that back and forth, you have a little more leeway to do it. In regards to when TNA did it, they weren't on the same platform. They were.
I can absolutely agree with that. But the other thing is, it reminded me of mid-2000s TNA stuff.
That's
where it felt like every other person had to make, because they had so many guys from WWE. On the last episode, we brought it up, the Voodoo Kin Mafia, which was a faction that was made completely to take shots at WWE. But then where do you fulfill that? Like, that's my thing. Is like, you're bringing up Moxley's going to take on another guy from WWE, and they're going to have a match next week. And that's cool, because we haven't seen a lot of Jake Hager in AEW. He's only wrestled a handful of times. We see him around the ring a lot, so there is an appeal. So that's my thing. I was just like, this is the first time Hager's going to have a big match, really. He had one at the pay-per-view. I was like, why aren't you talking about that? To me, it's a distraction that doesn't add anything and doesn't get fulfilled. Like it's like selling something that you know is not going to happen. It's someone teasing you on a first date. And how are we going to see them not put smiles on people's faces? It starts a storyline that they're actually not on. You know, like, it's like they're not going to like do something. Are they going to do something else to take a pot shot at WWE next week? Is that going to add to the match they have? My point is, yeah, exactly. So my point is, saying what you're not doesn't tell me who you are. Like, you saying, I'm not Dean Ambrose, I'm not this, it just brings more attention to it. It brings more attention to, oh, if you're saying that, then, why don't I go see if WWE's putting smiles on people's faces? I didn't see WrestleMania. Why don't I just go, yeah, sure. Vince, I don't like Vince, and I'm an All Elite wrestling fan, and I love saying Too Sweet and all that stuff, and I love being elite, but I heard the Boneyard match is cool. It makes it easier for anyone who's a hardcore All Elite wrestling fan to change the channel. Because you're bringing notice to something. You're trying to take a pot shot at it, almost in a way where it comes up in your face. And that's for me. And I think these guys are really smart. But do you think this is something where maybe a little bit of editing, maybe a little bit of like, hey, let's reel that one in? And especially because these are taped shows. These aren't live. You know, I felt that with WrestleMania a little bit this weekend. Like, the big question was that Edge and Orton match was way too long, right? It was a 37-minute match. It was the second longest WrestleMania match of all time. My thing is, like, it's taped. Cut it down. You know what I mean? Like, why even go there? Like, so in that same factor, I felt, I'm not saying they're playing themselves, but if they keep going down this road, it's going to be like when you didn't care about someone going through a table, when blood didn't matter. You know?
I get it.
And
I understand.
And All Elite Wrestling, and I'm not like against them. I think they're so great, but there's some glaring weaknesses creatively in terms of, and we saw this before when the Dark Order had that bad episode, before they could give you the Exalted One, before they could do things. They had a rough period at the end of 2019 where it was like kind of obvious that they weren't, their storylines weren't cohesive, and they were waiting to get to something, and they had to do filler that didn't even fill. And this isn't that, but it's so distracting from Jon Moxley and Jake Hager. That should be a big match. That should be what we're talking about. And
I don't feel it distracts, though, Kev. I feel what they're looking to promote and what that video package conveyed was the sports-like feel that AEW wants to bring to their product. And it's something that they've been talking about, and not necessarily that we haven't seen quite yet, but that added to it. And I think what that comment does for Moxley and Hager both is it leans into that sports-like feel. It leans in away from that, we're the alternative. Now, I agree with you that they can't keep doing it, and they can't keep playing it up in a lot of ways. But when the time's appropriate, and I think that was an appropriate time to do it, to kind of take a dig, that's okay. I feel that in a lot of ways that really plays into it. As far as them changing the channel to people looking at going back to WWE,
I don't see that happening. But I'm just saying, if you keep doing it, if you keep doing it,
that's the thing though. WWE needs to make certain changes for them to want to compel a viewer to do that. Where we've seen a lot of what Vince McMahon's package of wrestling product is. Now, as far as certain things are concerned with what they're doing with the cinematic matches and maybe this opportunity that they can turn into of having these empty arenas and making it changing.
Negative becomes a positive. Take the
negative could become a positive. But in that same turn, I really don't want them to oversaturate the cinematic matches either, because that's going to be to their detriment as well. So,
and I would say we've gotten 3 in a week. If you want to say sit, I mean, mind you that we've already, like I said, we've already played that phrase in terms of just how do we film a match without fans to make it different. Mm-hmm. Danny Cage, you and Danny Cage have been talking about this. Go subscribe to the podcast. Danny Cage Double D Show. I love it. I have not heard episode 2. Give me a teaser on episode 2.
Well, we talk about that. We talk about the cinematic matches, and he gives a very interesting perspective on how to handle the cinematic universe for WWE and what to do, almost to make it almost underground in a way and unexpected for WWE as a product. It's very interesting and something I didn't even consider. So he talks about that. But something that I really found fascinating with this upcoming episode, or this episode that just released, was he talks in regards to what defines a professional wrestler exactly. And it's not just the in-ring work. It's a lot. Ring work is maybe, I don't remember this percentage he gave, but around 10% is that. But more of it is who you convey yourself as a character and persona. And he really delves into that, and he talks a lot about how the younger talent, like students and people in the industry, their attention is not focused on that, and that's an unfortunate aspect of things that they got to learn on. So there's a little preview for you. Yeah,
absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Go subscribe. WrestleZone Radio podcast feed. You get all of the WrestleZone dailies, as well as a weekly episode with Danny Cage from the Monster Factory, one of the most quietly influential people in wrestling. You may not know the name, but we can't tell you the people he trained. Like, this is a guy who's literally molded world champions. Go check it out. It's a great listen, especially if you want that deeper dive beyond just the daily headlines. So we've gotten into it. AEW, NXT. NXT gets a very slim win over AEW in the ratings. It struck me more as a loss for AEW than maybe a win for NXT, maybe even a tie. Big match. NXT took a real significant creative risk last night, giving almost an entire hour to a no fans match that was filmed completely different than anything else they do. But something fun happened at it. I won't give it away. Mixed opinions. You said there was mixed opinions about most of what I saw was pretty positive, but I do see people saying. That's what I saw too. Yeah, I do see some people saying like, "Hey, if this wasn't commercially interrupted, it would be good." Maybe just the commercials were a big thing, but it's television. You have to have commercials. I don't know where people. If you're watching TV live, you get commercials. It's like saying I was angry watching the NBA and they had commercials. Like I don't know. To me, it's just like it's a part of the game, fellas. Like it's part of what you have to do. So let's get into this, though. Moving ahead, how much do you think AEW is going to have to evolve around this thing? Because we're seeing WWE do it. We expect Money in the Bank is going to be a show with no fans. That's where we are, and that event is May 10th. We're in danger of Double or Nothing being in that position because we learned yesterday that MGM Grand Resorts, where the upcoming All Elite Wrestling Double or Nothing pay-per-view for May 23rd was being promoted. It is where television is destined to get them right now. That is where everything has been taped out. So whatever they're getting to in Double or Nothing, that's all in the can. So all the television they have for the next 2 months is already there. So whatever's laid out, whatever we get week to week, they can edit it. They can do different things in it. They can do different voiceovers with it. But we're here and we're getting to Double or Nothing. Does Double or Nothing go down with no fans?
I think that's tough. Yes, I think it does. Yeah.
And how much does that affect them? Because we've seen weekly television, you can get by without fans, but I think All Elite Wrestling and obviously WWE too, that there is this hump that fans are going to have to get over of the idea of watching wrestling without the roar of the crowd. And we've been a month into it. I've seen some fans just simply not that, like, it really takes them out to not hear the crowd, to not have that kind of communal element that brings it together. Does that hit AEW more than it would WWE? I'm not sure.
See, I don't think it does, because I think in a lot of ways AEW has been handling it as appropriately as they can. When WWE has had a bit of a learning curve when it comes to it. And like we talked about this last time I was on, was how on Raw they had the Street Profits on ringside when Bianca Belair and Zelina Vega were fighting each other, and they created some action on the outside and some noise and stuff like that, which I thought helped. And we saw this yesterday on Dynamite. They had about, I want to say, 12 people ringside on each side, cheering and making noise and everything like that. So in that regard, I think they can keep the balls up in the air a little bit in regards to it. It's going to be a tough thing, and I kind of understand that. Yeah, watching these empty arena matches are kind of tough, even if they're good matches and even if they're well-told stories. It takes away a little bit. It can't help it. But there was times too when I was watching Mania. I watched it in segments because it was kind of tough to watch.
Okay.
So yeah, I feel the audience will have, the lack of audience is obviously having an effect. But do I think we can get adjusted to it? Maybe people will table wrestling for a little bit too. That could just happen. So
who knows? Yeah. And also we're in this position where in several parts, at least the United States, there is a belief that the curve could be flat. Now, New York is still heavily hit. It seems like New York is going to deal with this for a long, long time. There is some hope that regions of the country could be opened up, but I don't want, especially within the wrestling world, and that's the bubble we're in, right? I want us to look outside of that bubble. And in Japan, there have been some wrestling events that have come back, but New Japan Pro Wrestling announcing yesterday that they will be holding off on even more events, and they were one of the first major promotions to really be hit by this, just in terms of regional proximity to where the outbreak started in China, and it spread across Asia. They've now spread out in terms of canceling the New Japan Cup. The Wrestling Dontaku card has also been canceled, and they're canceling events through mid-May. They've been hit pretty hard by this. Other wrestling promotions in Japan, as some regions started to open up and there was a level of how many people could attend an event, they started to have cards again. But now there's a second wave of different cases. I don't see live wrestling coming back in full form until almost the fall, if not the end of the summer. If we're in any position to have it at all. And even if we're in some level of safety and the new normal continues to stay here, I don't think you can even have events with, more than a few people, so you could have a WWE event where there's 150 people, and that's it, and everyone's temperature.
I think it'd be irresponsible. I think it'd be irresponsible to do otherwise either.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying you're.
No, I know. Now. No, I mean even down the road. No, I mean even down the road, like even into like late summer, even if you're. I mean, sure, I'm not Dr. Fauci or anything like that by any sort of the imagination, but I mean, it just as a perspective, it's like I'm seeing either it's been a nice couple days out in Pittsburgh, for example. So you see people outside, and that's if you keep your distance, that's okay. But I don't want people to get too fast and loose with this whole thing of being like, hey, it's okay to kind of go outside and interact and mingle a little bit. Let's take it easy. It's going to be time.
Let's see what fans are thinking. I want to check in with fans and how they kind of feel about the idea of maybe returning to wrestling events. Jason Michael Campbell texting in saying, I have not been to a wrestling show in a while, and I probably will not be able to make one again, which I'm okay with. So, fans are upset there's no fans at a show, but they're not too drawn to going to one either.
Yeah. No, I can't blame it. I honestly can't blame anybody for feeling that way. It's tough.
Walker Martinique says, I don't see live events happening until next summer as well, through the winter. That would be pretty brutal. But yeah, I mean, we're on a track where a vaccine will come, but the time in which it can get here is extended. The process in doing that, and you trust science, it takes around a year and change. And then to verify it, get it manufactured, and get it across the world, that's another extended process. And also, we don't know how bad this could be in other parts of the world where media distribution is not a first world privilege like we have, So there's another thing there too. So a lot of people are getting through this together. We hope you're enjoying the content we have for you at WrestleZone.com, despite me having to talk to you like I'm on a speakerphone. And all the different tech issues and a million people on a Wi-Fi, we're very thankful for you. I would say that too. I'm very grateful for those people that have stuck with this. The James Fernandos, the Annas, the Herman Takars, the regular viewers that I see here all the time, the regular listeners that tweet into the show, our great fans in Australia. We have a pocket of you guys out there listening as well. So we're thankful for you guys. There's a lot of options you have for wrestling media, and the fact that you choose us is something we don't take for granted. So let's get into some other wrestling news here. WWE moving forward. It looks like we're going to go into Money in the Bank with no fans, as I mentioned. That was originally scheduled for Baltimore at the Royal Farms Arena on May 10th. How do you see this kind of shaking out? It's a big ladder event. I would say maybe it's the fourth biggest show of the year for WWE. And now we're going to get kind of a rollout to that event coming up in May. I thought it was good when WWE kind of opted to make this the next big event coming out of WrestleMania. When I saw the schedule change, and mind you, that was before the whole pandemic really kicked in. But to go in this direction, I thought storyline-wise was good. It's a show that a lot of people look forward to. I've been to two of them live. They're fun shows. The Money in the Bank, anything can happen, I can show up at any time element. Does that get different with no fans? It really does. I think you can play with that in a pre-film way and a lot of different elements. There was something fun about the 24/7 championship, even though it's really a comedy lower-end card thing. Now doing that with a world title, it's a gimmick that I don't think has ever gotten old for WWE fans to follow.
No. I mean, it's going to be tough for Money in the Bank. I feel just the fact you have extra talent in there too, six or whatever it is, that's going to be a tough play to go with. But, people do get excited for Money in the Bank. I do enjoy Money in the Bank. I like it when they only have typically 1 or 2 matches of the Money in the Bank match and not like oversaturate it. But it's having it in an empty arena with the, that's gonna be another tough go. It's just the atmosphere you have that in. You almost need fewer ladders, I feel. Like bring them have 1, 2 ladders maybe tops.
No.
Just leave it at that.
Fill the whole performance center out with ladders. No chairs.
It's gonna be like a game. It's gonna be like Super Mario Brothers, where they're leaping from run to run.
No chairs. Anyone gets thrown over the railing, they're just knocking over dominoes of ladders.
Oh my God,
dude, come on! Wouldn't that be cool?
Abundance of ladders.
Wouldn't that be just an overabundance of ladders? I am all down for that. Yes, too many ladders. It is slams and ladders, shoots and ladders, man. I'm all for it. I think that would be fun. There's some people that have said you have NXT now as a brand. You're saying it's on level with Raw and SmackDown. Do you tie NXT into the show? I've heard a lot of fans speculate on that. If you're asking me, 2 guys from NXT get a spot. Like 2 guys, 2 gals from NXT can get in there. Now, mind you just had a ladder match with the women in NXT. That inclines me to think that maybe you've already scratched your quarterly ladder match card with NXT and you're not going to do it again. But I wouldn't be against seeing some of the women from NXT get a spot in the overall across brand match. It was effective for NXT people to get that fresh kind of merging with Raw and SmackDown. I wouldn't be opposed to it now. I think it would create some fun new elements for NXT because a lot of people love that brand and are very loyal to it. And they love seeing it get an edge, for lack of a better phrase, on Raw and SmackDown. That was certainly the appeal of Survivor Series, one of the better reviewed shows of WWE recently.
Oh, yeah. No, I totally agree. I mean, I think it would only benefit NXT and whatever stars they decide to put into that match if they were to put 1 or 2 of those stars. And I think they should do at least maybe 2 stars in there to kind of create some sort of, ongoing feud on the NXT program too. Yeah, that'd be great.
In terms of who could win the briefcases, it's way out. We have no idea who could win the briefcases right now. So you win the briefcase, you have that kind of wrestling nuclear option of being able to go in and get a world title shot anytime you can. I think it gets a little bit more interesting with the men because you could take that and go after the Universal Championship or the WWE Championship. Plus, you have 2 new world champions coming out of WrestleMania weekend with Braun Strowman and Drew McIntyre. Steven Chambers texting in. He says he could see Seth winning the men's briefcase and Shayna Baszler winning the women's briefcase. Those are pretty strong predictions here. Both of them took big losses at WrestleMania. Could this set them up for something special down the line in kind of the next quarter of business for WWE?
Yeah, it could. Seth is kind of like in this, if you've noticed too on his social media, he's kind of dismissed the whole Monday Night Messiah thing in a lot of ways. So it's going to be interesting to see where he and WWE decide to take his character in a lot of ways. If he's just going to, I don't know what they're going to do, but I think it kind of did need a little bit of a refresher in a lot of ways with how he's been booked as a Messiah kind of thing. I don't think it was really fitting his style in a lot of ways. I liked kind of his look that he gave, but otherwise I think it could use it. I don't think he's going to be the Money in the Bank winner, honestly, if I had to pick. It is interesting, Kev. Did you see today that Becky Lynch really vouched for Cesaro as a champ? Did you happen to see that online?
No, I did not.
No, okay. So she was on an Instagram story with Kayla Braxton of the WWE The Bump. And Kayla Braxton started running down like, hey, you guys got a lot of like European champions going on right now. And she started running through the list. And Becky Lynch butted in and said like, hey, what about Cesaro? Cesaro should be a champ. We got to get him in there. And she was like, hashtag Cesaro for champ, hashtag that. So, I mean, I would never be against Cesaro winning a Money in the Bank match.
He is such a widely respected guy in terms of talking to wrestlers and me covering wrestling for the better part of 15 years, 16 years. He is just one of those guys where I have never once, not even once, heard an ill will about him. Yeah. Even from fans. I would say some fans have kind of resigned to the idea that he may never be a top guy in WWE, but there is this sense of widespread respect for him. almost in that era that like Daniel Bryan gets to breathe. You've proven yourself to be such a good person, and then on top of it, a better person than maybe you are a performer. But in terms of being a performer, you can always deliver something special. I think Drew Gulak and Cesaro got to have a fun, good match. Nothing roof breaking. But Cesaro's just one of those guys. When he gets the opportunity, he takes it. He has some freakish strength that you don't see in someone who's already built they called him a cyborg for a little bit, right?
Yeah,
he's
built cyborg.
He's picking up 500-pound men and giving them neutralizers. He's not just giving them a body slam. He's doing some really crazy stuff. But they've always said that maybe he just doesn't have that personality factor. I've eroded on that idea. But I don't hate the idea of him with Sami Zayn and Nakamura as the artist collective. I've always thought they've kind of been a fun goon squad in terms of mixed pieces that are certainly very familiar with each other, especially Sami and Cesaro. They have history in Ring of Honor, and they have some chemistry there as well. I also think he's a very charismatic guy. I've always thought he was he did have, he's a victim of being in a big system. And everyone says, how come they don't do this with this guy or this gal, or why don't they push this? WWE just has a very deep bench. And when you have a very deep bench, the curve gets different. Like, you put it to you this way. I'm not on air on the radio station I'm on all the time because we have a deep bench of talent. But I like being on this radio station. So, okay. Like that's kind of the deal. If you want to stay on that team, and if you're on Team WWE, you understand you play a supporting role. But I always think he's one of those guys that could always just go boom, 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 smash in case of emergency. We need a title contender, just like they did with Braun Strowman this past weekend. Braun was a guy who's been red hot for a long, long time. They can do a lot of things with Cesaro, so I wouldn't be opposed to it. Sure.
No, you know what? And he's got that old school champion kind of look, like where he's like a Lou Thez almost, where it's just like you got that guy that's just gonna you could see him holding the 10 pounds of gold even and stuff like that.
Or the Money in the Bank briefcase. I mean, if you want to rocket this guy out of being in a stable and going on his own, that's how you do it. Craig Backlund texting here, what about the Fiend winning the Money in the Bank briefcase? I think that'd be a good call. Yeah, and here's why. It would make for some fun television because The Fiend is a guy who works really well with, for lack of a better phrase, props and storyline devices and teasing. He is a character that is all about the tease. He is titillation to the T. Because some people may say that the big critique on him, even though he's been very, very popular and very much one of the more talked about wrestling characters all around. Doesn't matter what promotion you're talking about. People talk about The Fiend. But find people who can tell you a lot of matches they like about The Fiend, and that list is very short. He had a fun one with Daniel Bryan when it came to ringing the bell, but you could almost say that he really didn't have a match with John Cena at WrestleMania. They had more of a segment, a pre-filmed avant-garde vignette battle.
A fever pitch.
Yes.
Fever dream.
A fever dream. A fiend dream.
A fiend dream.
Or a nightmare, if you will. Ooh. Him with the briefcase, teasing, cashing it in, and him showing. And mind you, how long did they do the gimmick where he would just show up and take people out and choke them out and appear? And it was creepy.
I love that.
Now,
I love that back. I think they kind of lost that, and that's a bummer because I thought him coming in and knowing that he's taking these stars out that you're associated with, and you have a fan superstar relationship with. It was creepy, man, and seeing legends getting going down and all that stuff. Oh man, yeah. So
yeah, but I mean, you give him the briefcase and he shows up at any time, and let alone he takes you out as a champion and he takes your title. It's a good way to reboot a character a lot of people thought was done after Goldberg beat him real quick. How about that WrestleZone exclusive we reported yesterday with Goldberg? Goldberg, it was a lot of other sites ran with the story. Our very own Bill Pritchard reporting on that. Goldberg reportedly did not want to lay down for the Fiend in Saudi Arabia. And it was a last minute decision to put the title on Goldberg. and plan for him to go against Roman Reigns. Now, obviously, plans change, and so many things are changing by the minute. But let's see what fans are saying here. People are talking a lot about different takes here on things here.
Let me add too, Kev, while you look. Go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I like this one here from Sean Smith. Do you ever see a tag team Money in the Bank match? Not at this time. You have 2 different titles. I don't think they really need it. I just think they need to develop new tag teams and new rivalries. You have the tag teams now. Maybe you need a couple more. You have Heavy Machinery are over. I don't know if they're going to stay a tag team since Otis is so over on his own and had a fun match at WrestleMania that people liked. You have Street Profits are still a green team. They're still fairly new, even though they're champions. And then you have a handful of different teams they're putting together. They just put together Cedric Alexander and Ricochet. So in terms of WWE having tag teams, I just think they need to make more tag teams before they go and do that.
And I think, too, the less tag teams you have in a match, the better it is for the tag teams, because there's too many people. You don't want too many people in the matches. It dilutes the star power of each of them when you do that. I feel like you don't get a taste. You don't get enough of a certain superstar. Let's use Montez Ford, for example. If he's in a match with all these other guys, you're just going to get lost in the shuffle. You don't want that. And Money in the Bank, I just don't feel is the perfect spotlight for a tag team match.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We will come back with more content over the weekend. Keep your Facebook notifications on. So Facebook, a lot of people watch us there. Obviously, that's where we stream live. But it's worth noting that if you like our page, you need to follow it too. This is another little hoop that Facebook gives us so that you get the notification, when we go live. So make sure you're doing that and you follow the page. A lot of news that we post there every single day. You can check us out on Twitter as well. And we're waiting for the results to come in. Have they come in for WrestleZone Martinique? The final?
I don't think so.
CM Punk versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. Go get your votes in now. We can find out the results within the next 24 hours, so let us know what you think. Will it be CM Punk, Cult of Personality by Living Color, or will it be Stone Cold Steve Austin? I love me some Punk, but I'm thinking Stone Cold gets this one. What do you think, Dom?
You can't beat Austin. I just feel like that's the ultimate.
But it's a good matchup. That's a damn good matchup.
Great matchup. Definitely the 2 1 seeds. They have to be the 1 seeds. And you get.
I love when you say that. You break it down. You go to those sport terms. You give me those 1 seeds. Good on you, Dominic. This was one of your brainchilds with Bill Pritchett. You did a great job.
Thanks, man. It's a lot of fun to put together. Bill did an amazing job with the work and everything like that as well.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. We're trying to do more and more fun things, more retroactive content as well. But there's still a bunch of first-run episodes. So we're going to have all the news for you at WrestleZone.com. We reported on those ratings today from NXT and AEW and what's going on in wrestling. Some testy comments from Lana were made today. We have those up at WrestleZone.com. You can follow me on Twitter at KevKellum. Dominic, if they want to give you a follow on the socials, where do they go?
You can go to @DomicD'Angelo on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram if you want, @dom.d'angelo. And just, check out the Danny Cage and Double D show. I do the Survey Says on there, too, on the WrestleZone podcast. So where I just review a lot of – it's Dynamite, it's Fusion, and when it comes back, it's going to be NWA Power is the 3 I cover. So check them out, man.
A lot of content. A lot of content. Okay, we got it all for you, all right? You can go to a bunch of different websites, or you can go to one and get everything that you want. All right, and hey, look at these familiar faces. Okay, look at these. Right. We're trying to have that connection. We're trying to have that connection.
We're the new Baldies here. We're the new Baldies.
We're the new Baldies, baby. Bald is beautiful. Hulkster said it back in the day. Don't forget to share this link if you enjoyed this show, wherever you're watching it, wherever you're listening to it. Pass it on. Stay safe. Wash those hands. Watch some wrestling, and enjoy wrestling.